Your four favorites are The Taste of Tea, Until the End of the World, As I Was Moving Ahead, Occasionally I Saw Brief Glimpses of Beauty, and Throw Away Your Books, Rally in the Streets. This one was a challenge because these are such singular films, so it feels like nothing I recommend will even come close. And anytime there was a film that felt like a solid comparison, you already had it marked as watch. But I will try my best. Faces, Places, like As I Was Moving Ahead, is a documentary that reflects on art and life itself. It's warm and whimsical, like The Taste of Tea. It's also a road movie about human connection, like Until the End of the World. And it's unconventional and poetic, like Throw Away Your Books. Resurrection has a dreamlike, surreal atmosphere, like The Taste of Tea. It's an epic sci-fi journey, like Until the End of the World. It's a poetic meditation on time and memory, like As I Was Moving Ahead. And like Throw Away Your Books, it exhibits a sort of self-awareness in its depiction of cinema by drawing your attention to the fact that you're watching a film and breaking cinematic conventions in the process. Werckmeister Harmonies feels like a vast, expansive journey, like Until the End of the World. It also feels observational, like The Taste of Tea, but instead of observing this family, we're observing a small town. Like As I Was Moving Ahead, it's a patient film that's more about the feelings it evokes than what literally happens. And there's this undercurrent of political unrest, like in Throw Away Your Books. The Traveling Players is an epic, like Until the End of the World and As I Was Moving Ahead. And while it isn't a road movie like Until the End of the World, it does have that sense of a journey as the characters travel to different parts of Greece. And like Throw Away Your Books, it blurs the line between art and reality while critiquing its country's political climate. Millennium Mambo has that feeling of looking back on memories like As I Was Moving Ahead. Like Throw Away Your Books, there's this feeling of alienated youth, and there's this sort of drifting through time feeling like in Until the End of the World, and it feels intimate and observational like The Taste of Tea. The Man Who Sleeps focuses on the small, intimate moments of daily life like The Taste of Tea. Like Until the End of the World, there's this feeling of wandering and paranoia. Like As I Was Moving Ahead, there's this sense of personal reflection and a voiceover narration. And like Throw Away Your Books, the protagonist is a disillusioned young man. One of my favorite things about Until the End of the World is that it's sci-fi, but its depiction of the future doesn't feel futuristic in the traditional sense. Like it's not so far removed from reality. And another sci-fi film that feels futuristic in a similar sense is Alphaville. But I also wanted to recommend this one because Throw Away Your Books is a new wave avant-garde film that feels very much inspired by Godard. Although the Godard film that came to mind when I was watching Throw Away Your Books was Weekend, so I want to recommend that one as well. The combination of As I Was Moving Ahead and Throw Away Your Books makes me think you'd like The Devil Probably, because it feels like this intimate reflection on existence like As I Was Moving Ahead, but it also follows a disillusioned young man and has a lot to say about society and politics like Throw Away Your Books. Ritual is a surreal film about eccentric characters like The Taste of Tea. Like Until the End of the World, it feels as though the characters are longing for connection. Like As I Was Moving Ahead, it's personal and poetic. And like Throw Away Your Books, it's experimental and existential. Go Go Second Time Virgin came to mind when I was watching Throw Away Your Books because both films are experimental, transgressive Japanese films about disaffected, alienated youth with an underlying critique of society. I feel like so far a lot of the movies I recommended have been bleak and heavy, but there's a warmth and a lightness to The Taste of Tea, so a couple films that I think you'd enjoy that are warm and whimsical are Kamikaze Girls and Swing Girls. But The Taste of Tea has also been described as the psychedelic or surreal version of Bergman's Fanny and Alexander, and you didn't have that one marked as watch. His Motorbike, Her Island has a wistful, dreamy ambiance like The Taste of Tea. It experiments with visual style like Throw Away Your Books. It has this nostalgic feeling like As I Was Moving Ahead. And it may not be a road movie like Until the End of the World, but the fact that the characters spend so much time riding motorbikes kind of gives it a road movie vibe. Since Until the End of the World involves a device that can record visual experiences and dreams, I think you'd like Speaking Parts, which has a lot to do with recorded images, perception, and the intersection between technology and human connection, which also ties in with Throw Away Your Books because that movie breaks the fourth wall and makes a statement about film. And it's also comparable to As I Was Moving Ahead because it explores relationships and memories through recorded images. Distant Voices Still Lives came to mind because like As I Was Moving Ahead, it feels like watching the director's home movies, even though this one isn't a documentary. And it's an intimate portrait of family life like The Taste of Tea. I feel like the only films that are truly comparable to As I Was Moving Ahead are probably other films from Jonas Mekas, but that feels too easy. But because that film is an experimental documentary, and since there's a meta component to Throw Away Your Books with its fourth wall breaks, I started thinking of films that combine elements of documentary and fiction or blur the line between art and reality. So I want to recommend Close Up, The Company company of strangers and not a pretty picture. There were a few words in your review for Throw Away Your Book, such as Freudian, psychedelic, hyperactive, incredibly horny, and poetic that made me think you might like A Snake of June. And it's got this blue monochrome cinematography that reminds me of the monochromatic shots in Throw Away Your Books.